This is Escura InstantSnap. This is the most unusual design camera that I have ever used. So in this review, we'll have a look at this camera, see what this camera can do, and see whether this camera makes sense or not. Alright, first, let's have a look at the design of this camera, because if you are interested in this camera, it's pretty much because of the design. So this camera looks like a Instax or Polaroid photo. So it has a white frame at the surrounding, and then there's a clear window in the middle. So when you take photo, basically you use this clear window in the middle to help you frame your photo. There are a few things printed on the clear window here, but it's just a static print. It is not a LCD screen or anything like that. So according to the specs, the camera has a 3.2mm focal length lens with f2.8 aperture, but that is the original physical focal length. So I did some comparison. The actual equivalent focal length is around 80mm. So that means this camera has a approximately 25 times crop factor. And that means this sensor is about 1/10 inch or so. So that's a really tiny sensor. Because of the design, it is pretty much impossible to get a very accurate framing of the photo. If you rotate or tilt the camera a little bit, you may not even notice it at all, but that would dramatically impact the framing of the photo. What I found is if you place the camera approximately like 25 to 30 centimeter in front of you, so about 8 to 10 inches, and the framing would be very close to the picture that you can take. And since you are holding the camera quite close to you, and you'll be looking at the camera to help you frame your photo, so you actually have to close one of your eye when you are framing the photo, otherwise you'll be seeing some double vision. So in terms of control, there is only one button on the camera, which is the button here. You press it to take photo or start or stop taking video. Yes, this camera can take photo or video. So on the side, there is a little switch here. This is a very tiny switch. So you have the off position at the bottom, and then you have 1, 2, and 3. If you flick it to 1, that means you take normal photo. 2 means a special photo, which basically is the normal photo, but with a white frame at the surrounding, so the photo would look like a Instax or Polaroid photo. And if you push it to 3, that means you can take video. The switch is quite tiny, so I find it actually a bit tricky if I want to take photo, which means I need to move it to either 1 or 2 position, because the travel is pretty small. And also, even if you just look at the switch, because there is really not much travel and it doesn't have a very clear indicator or mark on the switch. So if you just look at the switch, you can't really tell whether you're in 1 or 2 or 3 position. But what you can do is you can look at the LCD light at the front. Different color means different mode. So if you're using this camera indoor, you can look at the LCD light. Unfortunately, if you are shooting outdoor, then the LCD can be a bit hard to see. So you may be taking photo or video in the incorrect mode. On the other side of the camera, there is a USB-C port for you to charge the battery. So the camera has a built-in battery. Surprisingly, you can use it to connect to your computer, and then you can transfer photos from this camera to your computer. This camera doesn't have any built-in memory, so there is a micro SD card slot at the bottom. So you need to buy your own micro SD card and use it with this camera. One thing you need to watch out is that the micro SD card that this camera can use is only from 4GB to 32GB. So be careful, don't buy a large micro SD card because it wouldn't work with this camera. So as you can see, this is a very tiny camera. The size is pretty much the size of a credit card, but because it does have a little bit of thickness, so you can't just slide it into your wallet. This camera is pretty much completely made of plastic. It is very lightweight. You can put it into your pocket very easily. But because there is a large piece of transparent plastic, which I think may scratch quite easily if you just put it into your pocket. So for me, I just put it into a small carry bag first and then put it into my pocket. Now in terms of image quality, because it is really a toy camera and the resolution of the JPEG file is only 1.3 megapixel, so I have very low expectation, and somehow this camera can still exceed my expectation. I mean in a negative way. The photo from this camera looks pretty bad, like really bad. I can't remember when was the last time I shot some photo with such bad image quality. Maybe that was back in the day when I had my first Nokia phone that was not even a smartphone with a built-in camera that was probably a 1 megapixel camera. The image quality may be similar to this. Even the photos from my iPhone 4, which is like at least 10 years ago, was way better than the photo captured using this camera. The exposure is all over the place. The dynamic range is also pretty terrible. But having said that, the photo does give me a very different vibe compared to the photos that I shot with a proper camera. The photos I shot with this camera looks more like oil paintings than actual photos. And this camera can capture video as well. The resolution is very low. I think is 400 by 480, which is even lower than VGA resolution, if you're old enough to know what VGA resolution means. And of course, there's no image stabilization of any type. But because of that, the video actually has a bit of that special retro feeling. It's like videos that you capture using the very first video cameras. Does this Escura InstantSnap make sense or not? One thing I haven't mentioned is the price. The price of this camera is around $50 US. If you just look at the image quality, it's definitely not worth the $50 price. There are many other cameras in the market, many other toy cameras around the same price that can deliver much better resolution than this camera. For example, I recently bought this camera for pretty much the same price, and the picture quality from this camera is definitely not great, but if I compare the photo of these two cameras, this is way better. So if image quality is what you care the most, then this camera doesn't make sense at all. Pretty much any smartphone camera, doesn't matter you have a budget smartphone from 5 or even 10 years ago, would be able to capture better photo and video than this InstantSnap. But on the other hand, I think a lot of people who are interested in toy camera, including myself, it's not because you want good image quality. The reason why you want to have a toy camera is just because you want to have a bit of fun. To me, photography isn't really just about image quality. Especially these days, pretty much 99% of the cameras on the market can give you really good image quality. Sometimes I just want to have a bit of fun, the experience of capturing photos and being able to enjoy the process, enjoy the photography experience and not being too serious about it is also very important to me. So if you agree with that, then spending about $50 US to buy a camera like this is not too crazy. After all, $50 is pretty much the price for a nice dinner. And for the same money, if you buy this camera and if you can have fun for a few evenings, then the fun you have is well worth the money already. At least that's what I keep telling myself. And maybe that's the reason why I have so many toy cameras on my camera shelf. That said, I would love to see a version 2 of this camera. Ideally, something closer to the quality of the photo that you capture using your smartphone. It doesn't have to be like a top of the line smartphone camera quality, but at least I hope the picture quality that it captures is good enough for sharing on social media, or if you pair it with an Instax camera, then you can print out some decent looking photos. I wouldn't mind if the camera has to be a little bit bigger or more expensive. Or the picture quality can remain exactly the same, but the size of the camera becomes quite a bit smaller, and just remove that transparent plastic piece so that I can clip this camera onto my keyring and put it into my pocket without having to worry about it may get damaged. But what about you? What do you think about this Escura InstantSnap? Do you think it's a waste of money, or you think it's a very interesting camera that you want to get one yourself? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.